In the bustling heart of Umona village, where laughter and chatter filled the air, there was no one more popular or notorious than Nkem, the vibrant market vendor. Her store, always stocked with the freshest yams and ripe plantains, drew a steady crowd. But it wasn't just her produce that brought people to her corner, it was the low of her voice, the thrill of her stories. Nkem loved to gossip, and she did it well. She seemed to know everyone's business, every secret affair, every squabble, every hidden jealousy, and she recounted them all with a skill that left her audience captivated. She knew how to spin the truth just enough to make her stories interesting, blending fact with fiction to create tales that left her listeners both entertained and scandalized. For Nkem, gossiping was an art form, a game of influence. She took pride in how people listened to her and laughed at her stories. She never stopped to consider the impact of her words. In her mind, it was all harmless fun. As she boasted to her friend Amoka one day, if people don't want their secrets known, they should live simpler lives. Amoka, uneasy but loyal, nodded along, her laughter more nervous than genuine. Nkem took little notice. She was too consumed by the attention her words brought her, the power that came with knowing and revealing. One evening, emboldened by her usual crowd's laughter, Nkem recounted a tale about a highly respected elder in the village, Elder Okeke, known for his wisdom and closeness to the spirits. Nkem had heard whispers about his private life and, true to form, had spun them into a tale of scandal, claiming the elder had secretly broken a sacred village oath. The crowd gasped, some chuckling nervously, while others cast worried glances. It was one thing to gossip about everyday folk, but an elder, especially one known to be protected by the spirits, was another matter entirely. Still, Nkem only laughed louder, thrilled by the shock and unease in her listeners' eyes. She never once thought that her words might invite consequences. That night, as Nkem lay in her bed, an odd sensation began to creep over her. Her mouth tingled, then throbbed, as if swollen from within. She tried to ignore it, thinking it was perhaps a reaction to something she'd eaten. But as she drifted off, strange dreams filled her mind. Shadows circled her bed, whispering back her own words, each syllable heavy with accusation and mockery. She saw herself as her listeners saw her, gleeful, careless, her mouth stretching wide to hold all the secrets and lies she had spread. In the dream, her mouth grew and grew, a cavern swallowing all reason and compassion. She awoke with a start, the whisper still echoing in her mind, though the room was empty. Morning brought no relief. The tingling had become an ache, and when she stumbled to her mirror, she gasped in horror. Her mouth was swollen, visibly larger than before, her lips stretching unnaturally. Panic surged through her, and she tried to push the thought away, rationalizing it as a strange coincidence. But deep inside, she felt a flicker of dread. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Desperate for answers, Nkem sought out a local healer, an old man named Ikemba. She tried to keep her voice steady as she explained her strange affliction, but her swollen mouth made each word feel uncomfortable, unnatural. Ikemba listened quietly, his expression growing serious. Finally, he shook his head and sighed. "Nkem, you have angered the spirit," he said in a low, grave tone. "Your words have carried harm. This is not a sickness I can heal. Your mouth grows because it carries more than it should." Her stomach twisted in denial. But it was just words. Just stories, she insisted. "I didn't mean harm. I was only entertaining the village." The healer's gaze remained unwavering. "Words are not mere whispers in the wind, Nkem. They carry power, more than you understand. You spoke falsely of a revered elder. The spirits do not take such insults lightly." Shaken but unwilling to accept responsibility, Nkem left the healer's hut, muttering to herself that it was all nonsense. Still, her mouth throbbed, as if reminding her of the truth she was so determined to ignore. Over the next few days, the swelling only worsened, each new rumor or embellished tale bringing fresh discomfort. The villagers began to notice her strange appearance, and whispers circulated. Nkem, the great storyteller, was becoming a story herself. Unable to bear the shame and discomfort any longer, Nkem sought counsel from the village elders. They listened with grim faces as she recounted her affliction. When she had finished, one of the oldest elders, Niora, spoke. Nkem, you have been given a rare gift. Not many are chosen to be storytellers, to carry the words and lives of the village. But you have misused that gift. Only honesty and silence can undo this curse. Silence. Nkem's voice broke in disbelief. Silence was her enemy. Silence meant no attention, no laughter, no admiration. Niora nodded firmly. With every lie, with every needless word, your mouth will continue to grow. This is the Spirit's way of teaching you restraint. You must learn it, or bear this burden forever. Nkem left the elders, feeling the weight of their words but still unwilling to believe her fate was her own doing. She was certain there must be another way. But each day, the temptation to gossip proved too strong. She tried to keep quiet, but every time she heard a new story or spotted something interesting in the market, the urge overwhelmed her. She would whisper a comment here or there, but each time she let a rumor slip, the ache in her mouth intensified, her lips stretching even further. Soon, she was unable to hide her disfigurement. People stared openly, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and fascination. Her friends, once eager to be around her, now avoided her store, unwilling to risk becoming subjects of her tales. The isolation weighed on her, and she began to realize just how much she had relied on others' attention to feel valued. Without it, she felt small, insignificant. For the first time, she began to understand the emptiness her gossip had tried to fill. Eventually, desperation drove her to heed the elders' words. One morning, she forced herself to remain silent. She watched the bustling market without speaking, observing the lives she had once so easily torn apart with her stories. As she watched, she began to see the village with new eyes. There was beauty in the quiet, in simply listening and understanding without the need to judge or embellish. She felt her spirit quieting, and with it, a faint loosening in her mouth. The next day, she decided to go further, seeking out those she had hurt. She began with a young woman she had mocked, whose courtship had been ruined by Nkem's careless words. The apology was awkward, her swollen lips stumbling over the words, but it was sincere. The young woman looked at her with wide eyes, a flicker of compassion softening her anger. Nkem felt a strange relief wash over her, as if a weight had lifted. When she looked in the mirror that night, her mouth was slightly smaller. Over time, Nkem apologized to those she had wronged, one by one. With each apology, her mouth shrank, her spirit lightened. She began to understand that words were not just sounds, they were connections, threads binding people together. To tear them recklessly was to sever those connections, to isolate oneself. Months passed, and Nkem found a new way to tell stories. She shared folktales, legends of the spirits and ancestors, tales of bravery and kindness. The villagers came to listen, drawn not by scandal, but by her wisdom. She was no longer feared but respected. Her journey from idle gossip to wise storyteller became a legend, passed down through generations, a living lesson in the power of words. Though her mouth returned to its normal size, Nkem carried a quiet reminder of her transformation, a faint ache, a memory of her past mistakes, a mark to keep her grounded. From that day on, she held her words with care, using them to uplift rather than tear down. In the end, she was not only the village storyteller but its guardian of truth, the woman who had learned, through painful lessons, that silence could speak as powerfully as words. The moral compass of this story centers around the power and responsibility of words. Words have power. Words are not merely sounds or either entertainment, they carry weight and can affect others deeply. Nkem's careless gossip harms people, damages relationships, and eventually turns against her. This underscores the idea that words should be used with mindfulness and respect. Secondly, Nkem's journey shows that respecting others' privacy and dignity is essential. She comes to realize that her gossip wasn't harmless entertainment, it was invasive and hurtful. Her story reflects the importance of valuing people's stories without exploiting them for personal gain or amusement. Thirdly, by experiencing isolation and forced silence, Nkem learns to listen and observe without judgment. This change allows her to find deeper connections with others and to share stories that uplift rather than divide. Silence, she discovers, can bring understanding and wisdom. Fourthly, the story demonstrates that it's possible to grow and redeem oneself after making mistakes. Nkem's journey from gossip to wise storyteller serves as a powerful reminder that people can change, learning from their errors and becoming better versions of themselves. Ultimately, the moral compass is a reminder to use one's voice responsibly, understanding that words can either hurt or heal, divide or connect, depending on how they are wielded.